Hello, I'm Agnes. My life story is very interesting because I have something very few other people have. When I cry, I don't have tears coming out of my eyes. I know it sounds unbelievable, but when I cry, tiny diamonds fall out of my eyes. Yes, I said diamonds. This is the second part of my story. I'll give you a quick summary. But if you haven't seen the first part, you can click this link to watch it. When I was little, I thought that everyone cried just like me. But my mom made sure that nobody ever saw me cry, not even my dad. She was afraid that if bad guys found out that I was crying diamonds, they would kidnap me and hold me hostage for the rest of my life. She was right to think that way. One day, my mom made me promise that I'd keep my condition a secret until I died. 4 years later, she was involved in a car accident and passed away. My dad got married again soon after. My stepmother has a daughter, and I didn't like either of them from the moment I saw them. Obviously, I didn't want them to find out about my secret, but unfortunately, I wasn't careful, and they learned the truth. At first, they didn't believe me. They even laughed at me. But when I started crying in front of them, they saw that it was true. It was a huge surprise for everyone to find out that I had this incredible condition. It was my dad who spoke first. Agnes, this is unbelievable and very dangerous too. If people knew about this, really bad things could happen to you. I understand now why your mother kept this, even from me. Then he turned to my stepmother and her daughter. From now on, Agnes' secret is our secret too. To protect her, we can't tell anyone about it. I want you to promise that you won't. They both nodded and said, "We promise." Then my stepmother grabbed the bag of diamonds from my dad, which of course wasn't surprising. But there's no harm in selling these. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone where they came from. Agnes, from now on, you'll give me the diamonds that come out of your eyes, and I'll sell them for our family. The next day, my stepmother and her daughter came home with a ton of shopping bags. Looking at the bags, I could tell that they went to all the most expensive stores. Apparently, when my stepmother said our family, she meant only herself and her own daughter. My stepmother's daughter, Nancy, came to my room that evening. She was very excited, saying, "My mom says it would be so wonderful to move into a big, beautiful house, and we can do it thanks to you. It wouldn't hurt you to cry a little. What do you say?" It was useless to argue. I said, "Okay, I'll collect and give you the diamonds if I cry, just to get rid of her." She left my room ecstatic. Next morning, when I came to get breakfast, I saw my stepmother and her daughter waiting for me impatiently. My stepmother asked, "Did you cry? Where are the diamonds?" I was so angry. Before I could say anything, Dad said, "Honey, you shouldn't say things like that. Agnes should never feel like she's under pressure," which shut my stepmother up. This subject didn't come up again for a while. I was surprised that they gave up so quickly. Later, I found out it was because they still had money. They were going shopping almost every day, but after a while, they stopped. That's when I figured the money had run out. One day, I was hanging out in my room after school. Nancy came in and said, "Mom is calling you. She made popcorn. She says, let's watch a movie together." I was surprised because this was very unusual. I thought to myself, where did this come from? When I came to the living room, my stepmother was looking at me with a fake smile on her face. "Agnes, this movie has very good reviews. Let's watch it together," she said. So we started watching this Will Smith movie. First, the main character lost his job. Then his wife left him. He was left with a 6-year-old son. As if that weren't enough, the landlord kicked them out. They had to start living on the streets. When I saw my stepmother and Nancy crying their hearts out, I knew what they were trying to do. They wanted to make me cry during this sentimental movie and then collect the diamonds. But there was one thing they didn't know. I never get emotional during movies. I don't get scared when I watch horror movies, and I don't cry during tearjerkers. My stepmother and her daughter cried throughout the whole movie. At the same time, they kept checking to see if I was crying too. When the movie was over, they were really upset because they didn't get those diamonds they were dreaming about. Over the next few days, my stepmother did everything she could to make me cry. Thankfully, because she was scared of my dad, they were all harmless tricks. But one of them made me really mad. When I came home after school, I went straight to my room, like I always do. When I entered my room, I was so shocked by what I saw. The curtains were closed. There were lit candles standing around. The weirdest part was that there were a bunch of photos of my mom taped to the wall. In some of them, my mom was by herself, and in others, it was both of us. This, of course, was my stepmother's latest trick. I ran over to her. "Can you explain to me what is happening in my room?" I screamed. She faked surprise, saying, "I found out that your mom's birthday is coming up. I wanted to surprise you. Didn't you like it?" I said, "I didn't because I know why you did it. I won't cry just because you want me to." After which she dropped all pretense. "Look, Agnes, you're the goose that lays the golden egg. That's why I won't hurt you. But if you want to live in this house, you'll have to come up with the goods, or I won't be responsible for what's going to happen to you." She was clearly threatening me. I got back to my room fuming. I had to do something right away. When my dad came home, I went to speak with him. Before I could open my mouth, he said, "Your mom called me and told me about what happened between you. She made a surprise for you with the best of intentions. Your reaction is wrong. You've become too paranoid." I said, "Dad, first of all, that woman is not my mother, and how can you even think that her intentions are good? All she is trying to do is to make me cry and get the diamonds." My dad got really upset. "Even if you don't accept it, she's your mother now. If you think she wants the diamonds, then give them to her. Why are you being so stubborn?" he screamed. When he said that to me, I knew my stepmother got to him. From then on, it was dangerous for me to stay at home because of the things my mom was worried about could happen to me. Except my mom was afraid of the mafia, but it looked like it would be my own stepmother who would hurt me. I thought for a long time. I couldn't go to the police or the social services because then my secret would be out. That could cause a whole lot of other problems. I had enough diamonds hidden in the basement to allow me to support myself for years. But I couldn't leave home because I wasn't an adult yet. I didn't have any relatives that I could safely stay with. Even though I was so angry with my stepmother, I had no choice but to give her what she wanted. At night, when everyone else was sleeping, I went down to the basement and got a small bag of diamonds. In the morning, I took out a few and went to the kitchen. My stepmother and her daughter were having breakfast. I showed them the diamonds in my hand. "Finally!" my stepmother screamed. She took the diamonds. But she was clearly not satisfied, saying, "These are way too few. We need a lot more than just these." Of course, I wasn't going to give her what she wanted. I was going to turn 18 in only 7 months. After that, I was determined to take my diamonds and leave home. Until that day came, I was going to stall my stepmother by giving her a few diamonds from time to time. Since the diamonds in the basement were my future, I had to hide them somewhere outside the house, somewhere safer. So do you know where I hid them? At my mom's grave. I bought a nice flower planter. I put the bag with the diamonds at the bottom. I filled it up with soil and then planted the flowers on top. I went to the cemetery and put the planter in front of my mom's tombstone. I couldn't think of a safer spot than that. Who would steal a flower pot from a grave? I was so relieved because the diamonds were safe with my mom. I left one bag inside the cupboard in the basement. I was taking a couple of diamonds a few times a month and giving them to my stepmother. Even though she wanted more, she couldn't say anything. Because thanks to me, she'd bought a new car. She was wearing only designer clothes, and she got a ton of jewelry. The day before my 18th birthday, my stepmother and her daughter came to my room. I was about to finally become free, but of course, they didn't know that. My stepmother looked agitated. "Agnes, why aren't we moving into a better house? Why don't we have maids and cooks?" she asked. "Because you don't have enough money to afford all that," I replied. She waved her finger at me. "We actually do have money. All you need to do is cry, but you're not doing it on purpose. You're giving us crumbs just like you would to a beggar," she said. "Do you want me to cry just so that I can give you diamonds?" I asked her. And she said, "Yes, Agnes, I want you to cry. If you don't cry on your own, I will make you cry. I'm done waiting. I'm giving you until tomorrow. If you don't cooperate, you're going to be in a lot of trouble." And she left. Nancy was still in the room. "Agnes, you'd better take my mom seriously. She's capable of doing things you can't even imagine," she said and left, slamming the door behind her. I thought, my dear stepmother gave me until tomorrow, but she has no idea what's going to happen tomorrow, and burst out laughing. Never in my life have I slept more peacefully than I did that night. You're wondering what happened in the house the next day, right? Unfortunately, I don't know, because I didn't stick around to find out. When I woke up in the morning, I was an 18-year-old adult. I could do whatever I wanted, and I did. I left home without saying a word to anyone. Right now, I'm in a small town on the other side of the country. I'm not using my real name. No one in this town knows who I am. As you might guess, I'm living on the money from the diamonds that I hid at my mom's grave. I don't need a lot of money anyway, but when I do, I can just cry a little. And I found a very easy way to do it. Because I'd never cooked before, I'd never chopped onions either. One day, I was making dinner, and I chopped onions for the first time. Suddenly, diamonds started pouring out of my eyes. I realized that I could cry very easily thanks to onions. I'm so happy my stepmother couldn't think of this. Thank you for listening to my story. Please don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it.
Hi friends, my name is Amelia. I have an extremely rare genetic disorder. This condition is so rare that there are only 400 known cases of it in the whole world. And I'm one of them. I'm sure you will be shocked when you find out what it is. You might not even believe it. By the way, you can subscribe to this channel now if you would like to know when new videos get uploaded. And if you like my story, please don't forget to like this video. First, I want to tell you about something that happened to me when I was 6, because that was the first time my parents realized there was something going on with me. There was a forest near where we lived. Sometimes we would go camping there. On one of those trips, as my mom was preparing dinner, my dad and I went to gather wood that we could use to start a fire. Suddenly, we heard my mom scream. Naturally, my dad ran back to her right away. It turned out that a giant snake had climbed onto the table and was sitting there right next to the food. My dad told my mom, "Honey, don't panic. I'll get rid of it right now." But all he could do was to try to shoo the snake away by making strange noises. Meanwhile, I had noticed that the snake was next to the chocolate cake. So without even thinking about it, I walked up to the snake and grabbed it by the back of the head. Then I tossed it away while my parents stared at me in disbelief. The snake was probably as shocked as they were. It quickly disappeared into the forest. When my mom screamed, "What did you do?" I just said, "It was going to eat our cake." Of course, what I did was incredibly dangerous. If the snake had bitten me, I could have gotten sick or even died. So how could I have done something so brave even though I was only 6 years old? I only did it because I'm not able to feel fear. I'm not scared of anything. It might sound nice when I put it that way, but this is a genetic disorder, and it's definitely not something to envy. People have 6 emotions. 1, joy. 2, sadness. 3, disgust. 4, surprise, 5, anger, and 6, fear. All these emotions are created by the brain. The brain decides which emotion we should experience depending on the situation we're in. But what happens if your brain is not familiar with one of these 6 emotions? That's right, you can't experience it. This is the problem with people like me. Our brains simply don't know what fear is. That means I'm the most fearless person you'll ever meet, but it's not something I can be proud of. Because being fearless is much more dangerous than you might imagine. It leads to unpleasant things happening to me. On a few occasions, I have even had close encounters with death. There's a park not far away from my school. Sometimes my friends go there after school to sit around and chat. One time, a man snatched a purse from a woman who was sitting on the bench next to us and started running away. Just as he ran by us, I stuck my foot out. The man tripped and fell on his face, and the purse went flying from his hand. Of course, she was very happy about what I had done. She thanked me again and again. But at the same time, what I did was way too dangerous for someone my age. The man could have had a knife or even a gun, and he could have hurt me in so many ways for stopping him. That day was just one of the examples of the type of dangerous situations my fearlessness disorder could put me in. So, was I able to change my behavior as a result of this? Of course not. Because I don't know what fear is, bad experiences like these unfortunately don't have any effect on me. No matter what I go through, I keep acting without any fear. Some of you might say, okay, you might have no sense of fear, then you should use your mind. In such situations, protect yourself even if you don't feel fear. Unfortunately, this is not possible. I've heard that normally when people are scared, their hearts pound faster, their breath gets shorter, and their palms get sweaty. I don't understand that I should be afraid because none of these things are happening to my body. Otherwise, I'm not stupid. My IQ level is pretty normal. There's no problem with my memory either. I don't forget the bad things that happen to me. But despite all this, when I see a giant spider, I grab it with my bare hands without even thinking about it. It doesn't occur to me to protect myself because my brain does not signal for me to be afraid. That's why I can casually do all these things that can seem foolish to you. Of course, there are courageous people out there. But as you figured out, this disorder is not the same thing as being brave. It's so much more than that. For example, when crossing the street, you should be checking to see if there are any cars coming. People who have my disorder even have trouble with something so basic. Unfortunately, most of the time I step out into the street without looking. I'll tell you something even weirder. Do you go near wild animals knowing they could rip you to pieces? Unfortunately, people like me might. During my first year of junior high, we went on a class trip to the zoo. After a while, we came to the tiger enclosure. We saw that there were 2 adult tigers and a cub along with them. The little tiger was, of course, super cute. Suddenly, I had an irresistible urge to pet it. There was a wall and a moat separating us from the tigers. I thought that I could jump down, swim across the moat, and then pet that little tiger as much as I wanted. So I decided to go for it and started climbing over the wall. Thankfully, the teacher saw what I was doing and was able to grab me before I jumped down. "Amelia, what are you doing? Are you insane?" she screamed. Because I didn't think I'd done anything wrong, I was trying to explain myself by saying, I was just going to pet the cub and leave. After this incident, my parents took me to a therapist. They knew I was a brave kid, but this was a little bit too much. The therapist asked me a lot of questions about similar incidents that had happened to me in the past. Afterwards, he told my parents, it seems like Amelia's problem is not psychological, and referred them to a neurologist. I learned that it was neurologists who specialize in issues related to the brain. In the neurology department, they ran many tests on me. For example, in one test, the doctor showed me photos of people's faces and asked me how that person was feeling. For the first photo, I said, he's laughing, so he's happy. For the next one, she's crying, so she's sad. In the third photo, there was a woman who was screaming. I said, she's screaming, so... And I was quiet. I realize this sounds unbelievable, but when I see the face of someone who's afraid, I can't understand that they are afraid. My brain is not only unable to create the feeling of fear, but it also doesn't register that other people are afraid, because it doesn't have any idea what this emotion called fear is. Since my brain doesn't know it, I don't know it either. After these tests, neurologists gave me a definitive diagnosis: no fear disorder. Since this was a very rare genetic disorder, I became a case study in medical literature. From time to time, scientists come to visit me and perform new tests. Research on this disorder continues since its cause is still unknown. As you might have guessed, there's no treatment for it either. I will have to live with it for the rest of my life. So, are there any advantages to having this disorder? Thankfully, yes. I don't experience any fears that make life harder for people. For example, I've never been scared of taking exams, and that has always had a positive effect on my grades. I don't have a fear of public speaking either. Since I'm so comfortable, I always end up speaking on behalf of the students in parent-teacher meetings. I also don't have any phobias, such as the fear of enclosed spaces or the fear of clowns, and I will never have them. Finally, I always sleep like a baby when flying. I'm never afraid, no matter how badly the plane shakes while going through turbulence. Once, while flying through a storm, I saw lightning striking one of the plane's engines. I laughed and told my mom about it. She told me, Amelia, you don't have to say these things to me. Not everyone is as brave as you are. My friends have told me fear can be pleasurable in certain situations. Of course, I'm missing out on all of that. For instance, I don't like horror movies because they don't scare me. And I'm not scared of ghosts or zombies or vampires. Scientists who are doing research on my disorder placed electrodes on my head and made me watch scenes from the scariest movies. Thanks to those electrodes, that could see what was happening in my brain in real time. The tests demonstrated that there was no activity in the part of my brain related to fear. This was something to be expected, but now it was scientifically recorded. Another thing that everybody loves, and I don't, is riding roller coasters. I gave in to peer pressure once and rode one even though I knew I wouldn't be scared. They lost their voices from screaming so hard. I, on the other hand, just got bored and looked around. Now you know my story with all its details. Fear keeps us away from danger. That's why it's important for our survival. But despite all the drawbacks, would you still want to switch places with me? Please leave a message in the comments. Thank you for listening to me. Sharing all this with you felt really good. Bye.